Hi guys. Today you guys are going to be grading 2.2 task, the too big or not too big, and we're going to walk through how to grade that one. You're going to be grading 2.3 task, some of one, none of the other. Your 2.4 warm up, writing a system of linear inequalities based on a context. 2.4 task, let's highlight all that. And you're going to be grading the 2.5 warm-up, graphing a system of linear inequalities based on a context. You're going to be grading all of these things right now, okay? You should already have 2.3 warm-up, 2.2 warm-up, 2.1 task, and 2.1 warm-up graded. If you don't have those graded, then you'll need to grade those with your partner right now as well. So I'd like to remind you that all warm-ups, they can either be a 2, a 1, or a 0, and all tasks are either a 5, a 3, or a 0. So remember, when you say something is full credit, then and you sign your name next to where you put that grade, you truly believe that they earned full credit here. Because remember, if you give them a grade that they don't deserve, and I look back and I'm like, wow, they really did not deserve a 5, then those points are coming away from yours. So you really need to make sure that if you're giving a 5, they truly deserve a 5. Okay? So again, these are the tasks that we're going to be grading. So I'd like you right now, get that ready. And I'm going to pause for a minute for you. I'd like you to get all that stuff ready, and I'd like you to pass it to someone else. Okay? And we're going to start with the 2.2 task. So have that ready for them. We'll go through each of them. We're going to start with the 2.2 task. Okay, I'm just going to wait for a little bit, make sure everyone gets that out and passes that and the grade sheet to the person grading, someone else at your group. I'll open up mine. Okay, so for the 2.2 task, okay, too big or not too big. For someone to get full credit, they need to have everything filled out. So they should be showing me that there are, they should have, for number one, at least 5 combination of cats and dogs that are too big. So those combinations should be listed here. Okay. Then you have at least 5 combinations that are not too big, and those should be listed here. And they should have 5 combinations that would be just right, and those are listed down here. Okay, they should have a description based on their graph, because if you'll notice, each of these problems ask them to plot those points on a coordinate grid. So those points should be plotted, these points should be plotted, and these points should be plotted. Okay, all on one grid. And then there should be an observations, and it should be more than just one, like 3 or 4 words. You really need to have like a description here about the points. Then number 5 says to write an equation of a line that passes through the points, representing combination of cat pens and dog runs that cost exactly $1,280, which was the 5 points you found in question 3. So you should have an equation written down here, and then it also asks you, what does the slope of the line represent? So that should be answered as well. They have to explain what the slope of the line represents, and it has something to do with cats and dogs, how it's changing over time. All right, on to 6. 6 says you need to shade all the points on the coordinate grid that satisfy the startup constraint. So that graph that has those 15 points plus that line drawn, there should also be some shading on there, and I'm going to tell you it should be below the line at this point. Then you should also, for number 7, write a mathematical rule. So I should see an inequality or an equation down here. Okay? So it even describes, write an inequality. Okay, so that should be an inequality down here. Okay. Then for number 8, there should be another inequality, but this time it should not be the same as the one on number 7. It should be different because it applies to our space constraint with this information. So there should be an inequality made out of this information here. Okay? And notice that it also says shade the solution set for this inequality on a different coordinate grid. That means you need to have a second graph. Okay? So for you to get 5 points on this task, you need to have all of these questions filled out, as well as 2 graphs completed with shading, and 2 inequalities written, one on problem 7 and one on problem 8. And that's going to get you full credit on this task. All right. You guys can pause me as you get other papers out, but we're going to go on to the next task. Okay, so that the next one we're going to grade is the 2.3 task, sum of one, none of the other. So make sure you get that out. Again, you can pause here if you guys need a moment to get that together. I'm going to move on to 2.3 task. You should have already graded the warm-up. Okay, 2.3 task has a lot of information that you should have on here. Okay, so our first one, you should be showing the steps you used to turn Clarita's equation into Carlos's equation, and you should justify each step. Okay, so I should see the math to rearrange Clarita's equation into Carlos's equation. You should not just have Clarita's equation written and then Carlos's equation written. Okay, it should really show the steps of how you made that change to go for 24x plus 6y equals 360 all the way to y equals negative 4x plus 60. Those steps should be shown. And then you are going to do the reverse. I should see the steps here to go from y equals negative 4x plus 60 all the way to 24x plus 6y. So this one should show how to get from here all the way to here. And there are some mathematical steps to get there. So I should really be seeing that. Okay? Should really see that change. Okay, from here to here. But on problem B, you are doing the reverse. You are starting here. And you are taking that to the other equation. Okay, so those steps should be shown there as well. Okay, go in the other direction. Okay, now for your startup costs. Okay, you needed to write the equation from startup costs. You should have realized that this was what you did in 2.2. So you already have this inequality written, and most everyone wrote it in Clarita's method in standard form, but not Carlos's. And you need to have both of them listed here, and you need to come up with Carlos's not by rearranging the equation, but by following Carlos's description that he gave at the beginning of this task. Okay. So I should see both of those equations written, or inequalities written. Then B, you are turning Clarita's into Carlos's. Okay, another rearranging problem from standard form to y-intercept form. And then C is the back the other way from y-intercept into standard form. So that should be shown as well with those steps clearly shown. Once you've done that, you need to graph their lines. Okay, got to graph their lines on the coordinate grid. So you need to graph both the cost constraint and the space constraint. Okay, so you should have two inequalities graphed on that same graph. Okay, so you should have that resource page with a graph on it, and it should have some shading on there. Okay, for number 3, you should really be explaining how Carlos would graph this. Okay, how you could plot 2 points on his line, and that should be done on that resource page. That graph should be done. Okay, and the next one, you should be explaining how to graph Clarita's in standard form, and this should be an explanation without having to change this into slope-intercept. And you guys should recall that we talked about graphing the x and y intercepts here. Okay, and so that's plugging in 0 for x and solving for y. And this gives you your y-intercept. It's bigger so it's all one line. And then you needed to do it again, and you needed to plug in 0 for y and solve for x. And this finds you the x-intercept. Okay, so there should be some type of explanation like this. And these are the two easiest points because plugging in 0 makes the calculation very easy. Okay, so that should be kind of what you have for this one. So remember, all of these questions answered as well as a graph. Okay, so that should be task 2.3. Task 2.3. Okay, we're going to move on. And again, this is 5 points for full credit. And if you need to pause at this point, I'm going to be going on to the warm-up 2.4. So please make sure that that's available for you. Warm-up 2.4. Remember, warm-ups are 2 points. So to get full credit, and we kind of walked through a lot of this together as a class, so hopefully everyone has full credit. So remember, we should have all that key information down here. We should have defined our variables, so the variable equals and whatever it equals. Should write the constraints, and if you recall, the constraints are two inequalities, so there should be two inequalities here. And then an expression written for number 4, and then there should be 4 different combinations that fit 4 different ways that Linda Sue could pack up those calculators and chicken feed. So you should list how many chicken feed and how much calculators, and there should be 4 different ways she could have packed her plane. Okay, so that's that task. And again, you can get a maximum of 2 points on this warm-up, so 2 points here for this one. I'm going to move on to the task, so if you need to pause as we flip to that, that's fine. I'm going to continue. Okay, for 2.4, this was a pretty short task. Okay, you just had to look at feeding time and pampering time. 2 new constraints for Carlos and Clarita and their pet sitting business. Okay, so to get full credit on this, you need to just have 2 inequalities. Okay, 1 for feeding, 1 for pampering. And you need to have 1 graph that has both of those constraints graphed on there, and there should be shading showing where the solution is for both of them. And that's all you need to get full credit on 2.4. It's a much shorter task. So 2 inequalities and 1 graph with 2 lines graphed on it, and that gets you 5 points here. So please make sure that you are accurately grading everyone's. I'd like to remind you that when you're grading this, you put the grade right here in that box, and then you sign there legibly so I can see who actually graded it. And you're telling me here that you agree with that grade, that you're giving that grade, and that is absolutely correct there. Okay, so please make sure that you have that down. After you give this back to someone, they need to sign as well. Oh, we forgot the 2.5 warm-up. Let's do that quickly as well because you had that today. So for the 2.5 warm-up, okay, this graph, you should have some axes labeled down here. You should have some numbers in there. You should have the labeling that shows this x-axis is about Charlie's chicken and this y-axis is about the careful calculators. So please make sure those axes are labeled. You should have somewhere written on here those 2 inequalities from warm-up 2.4, and you should have both of those graphed on here. Shading, I should see shading on here for both of them. And you should be giving me some of those values that make both of them true. The 3 values that make both of them true and 3 values that only make one of them true and not the other one. Okay, so to get 2 points on this warm-up, which was a little kind of actually more extensive than your last task, but still only 2 points, you need to have all of this. And if you found the coordinates on this, that's fine. But if you didn't, that's okay. You can have everything else but number 3 and still get full credit. Okay, guys, take care. I'll talk to you in a few about how to take your group test. Quiz.